Our lives are laid out on a road of bumps, turns, struggles, and more. How do we respond? How do we endure adversity for learning and growth? I'm Aubrey Johnson, and we'll explore these questions and more on The Road to Rediscovery. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of The Road to Rediscovery. I'm your host, Aubrey Johnson. The Road to Rediscovery is about reflecting on life lessons to learn and grow from them, and of course, pay it forward and uplift others who are struggling. Now, I'm proud to announce that the Road to Rediscovery has partnered with a new platform called Featured Up. Here, you can engage with me or any of my guests by asking a question or sharing a comment. All questions will be read by yours truly on a future episode. You also have the option to leave a voluntary tip. All you have to do is go and visit www.featuredup.com/rediscover and tell us what's on your mind. Feel free to share whatever is on your mind. And as always, we are truly, truly, truly grateful for your listenership. My special guest has a background in clinical and multicultural community psychology. She's worked in private practice in community mental health since 2009 and is now the co-founder and chief systems architect of Quantum Clinic. Ladies and gentlemen, let's give Dr. Katelyn Lehman a big, big welcome. Dr. Lehman, thank you so much for coming on the show. It's so great to have you here.
It's really my honor. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh yeah, thank you. It's we're excited to have you here. So I'm really, really excited for what we're about to dive into. Okay, and I know this is no stranger to you or anyone, but here we are, January 3rd, at the time of this episode recording. Okay, and it's the beginning of 2024. Many people are looking for ways towards personal growth, their personal growth, self-care, and enhancing their way of living. Can you please tell us a bit about Quantum Clinic, how and when it was started, and some of your methods in supporting clients addressing their mental health?
Absolutely. So at Quantum Clinic, we really talk about how mental health is an inside job. And when we were getting together talking about how we could create a new model of kind of, let's call it a preventative care system for mental health and well-being, we put our heads together. We said, okay, what are the existing set of evidence-based interventions that we could kind of combine together in one really relaxing experience for our clients? And how could we really move away from a model of talk therapy towards a model of empowerment, where we're providing our clients with the skills and experience to begin to regulate their own autonomic nervous system and to really fully surrender in what's called REST, or reduced environmental stimulus therapy. And some people might understand that better, have heard about it as flotation therapy or sensory deprivation. But really the idea is that you're spending a period of time in a state of deep surrender and relaxation.
Love it, and that's, thank you for that. Now, as we unpack that a little bit more, I would love for you, for the listeners' benefit, if you could share and explain what it means for when we say healing through coherence.
Yeah, that's a great question and a really important one. So coherence actually has a lot of different meanings depending on the field of study that you're looking at, right? In the strictest sense, if you think about it, about the word coherence, it's about creating an overarching narrative or arc that makes sense, right?
Yeah.
So that's, sort of linguistically how the word can be used, but it's also used in physics to refer to a particular correlation of electromagnetic field waves. So you want to think of that as like more of a sine-like or harmonious wave in the energy of a particular system that's being looked at.
Yeah.
In psychology, this refers to kind of taking from that, it's looking at our internal systems. For a lot of people have heard of heart-brain coherence. So that's when there's
Right.
a coupling effect that happens between the energetic center of the heart and the mind, the brain, really, and we're shifting into deeper and deeper states of awareness and relaxation. So it's something that can be achieved and measured. It
Right.
can actually be measured up to a number of feet away from an individual, but we use
Right.
biofeedback sensors that take a measure of heart rate variability, and it produces a score that we're able to look at and, talk about. But yeah.
Nice. Very, very nice. And thank you for breaking that down, and what that means. In fact, there's something I would love for you to expound on a little bit later. I'm going to ask you regarding, and I think you alluded to it a bit, the brain and the heart,
Yeah.
right? And just the connectedness between the two, especially when it comes to dealing with the daily grind and the
Totally.
routine of things, right? So,
Totally.
yeah, and I'm
Yeah,
excited
so
to unpack that.
yeah, yeah. I mean,
Yeah,
though this stuff has a lot of like, my business partner always laughs at me because I'm the sciencey one, right? I like
yeah,
to understand it logically too.
yeah,
But really what it is, it's when you're in harmony. It's when you're at a
yeah,
state of peace, right? Or
yes,
or experiencing joy or gratitude
yes,
or reverence
yes,
for all the little things that go right in life, or maybe don't go right, but you're still, in a place of, connectedness to that emotional heart center.
100% connectedness. To me, that's the operative word, right?
Yeah.
And I got to tell you, Caitlin, my background is talent development. And
Hmm.
so I've been in it for many years. And one of the old adages in this industry that we talk about when it comes to training people to do their job, training people to do work, training people to learn a skill, is you notice that you move the needle or have gained some traction in your training when you have impacted the behavior. Okay. But here, with the work and services that it seems like Quantum Clinic provides, it seems like you go deeper than one's behavior. One example is the spa treatment for your DNA. I mean, DNA, that's way deeper than behavior, in my mind, at least. And so, I mean, it sounds, to get to the root of, say, one's ailment, such as depression or addiction or anxiety, is it necessary to go beneath the behavior, to a deeper level, to more of a core, to help, I guess, manage through whatever they're struggling with?
Sure. Well,
Hmm.
that's a really deep question, and I'm honored that you ask it of me. Um, I think what's important it's like, how do we even frame the conversation? Because the lens through
Right.
which you look at a particular issue often determines the set of possible solutions to the problem,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm. Hmm. Hmm.
The problem formation, how we talk about it, is related to problem solution. So
Hmm.
if you think of anxiety um, as I don't know if I've actually articulated it this way before, but let me go back and say what I hear you saying is that there's a relationship to behavior. And I would say that's really common. People think about thoughts and behavior and emotions as this triad, right? That
Right.
we
Right.
all have all parts of it,
Hmm.
cognitive, emotional, and behavioral manifestations of our underlying issue, right?
Right. Yeah.
And so when there's dissonance, when there's disharmony at an energetic level, that often manifests as anxious thinking, right? Or that often
Yes.
manifests as, running around and getting sidetracked doing one thing and then skipping to another thing, and then you're late, and it's the negative
Scattered.
spiral,
Yeah.
right? That
Yeah.
often a lot of people deal with.
Yeah.
Same is true for addictions or depression, just a different sort of underlying core thing that we're healing through, right?
I
And
see.
all of us
Mhm.
on this planet are healing through something, no matter what.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
so when we say we're talking about a spa treatment for your DNA, there's all this research that's showing that when you're in a state of coherence, you're actually elongating the strands, the space between the strands in your DNA.
Oh,
It's
okay.
like your whole entire being is going, right?
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
And so, and that's at a, at a molecular level, or, whatever you want to
Right, right.
call DNA, right?
Yeah.
Does interface with water molecules. And then you get into all this other stuff where you actually, if you're looking at water molecules under a microscope and you think love and you flash freeze that water molecule,
Mhm,
the
mhm.
crystalline structure of the water will be beautiful and harmonious. But if you think hate, vitriol, disgust, and you freeze flash that water molecule, it will look incongruent. It'll look disharmonious. It has a physiological expression. Our emotion does. So
Mhm.
that kind of where modern science is meeting with ancient spirituality and our understanding of the mind body connection as
Yeah.
as we're thinking about what are our thoughts, what are our emotions, how can we create greater harmony within. And that actually translates to physiological changes, both in the brain, but also at a cellular level.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. In fact, to me, it almost sounds like sort of akin to, I don't know, a brain scan where you can look when someone's feeling love or feeling warmth or contentment. Their brain looks a certain way. There's certain flashes in
Sure.
different parts of the brain versus when there's fear or
Right.
when there's worry or
Right.
anxiety.
Because when fear is activated, the amygdala or the midbrain, the brainstem is more
Hmm.
active than the more developed, primary cortices.
Yeah.
So when you're, but what we're learning is that a lot of that is actually upregulated from the heart. So when you shift your attention and intention into the area associated with the heart, you can begin to do that work easier. It becomes easier to do.
Amazing. Fascinating, especially the part where you gave a breakdown on the molecular vision, I guess, of your DNA. Those lines, those
Yeah,
strands kind
yeah,
of
the spiral.
pull
The
and space
spiral,
out.
if
This
you're under a lot of stress, the spiral is tight, like a
Yeah.
coil, right? And if
Okay.
you're in
Yeah.
coherence, it's like, it's breathing.
Yeah. I never knew that. That is fascinating.
Yeah.
And I can see how, one shape relates to whatever sense of being you're in at that time,
Mhm.
as well as the other. So, wow. No, totally fascinating. You're sharing some great insights here, Caitlin, and the listeners. I'm telling you, it's resonating with them because these are things that people, well, people with a tremendous amount of self awareness, would wonder and ask. Okay, I'm crying. Why am I crying?
Yeah.
Or I'm angry. Okay, I notice I'm angry. How do I process it? How do I get through it? Right?
Mhm.
Those sorts of things. And that leads to my next question regarding timing. Okay, is there a recommended timing? Because everyone lives on a different timetable. Okay, different events happen in our lives, whether they're fortunate or unfortunate or tragic. And when someone seeks your services, is there a timing that you recommend? And what I mean by that, Caitlin, is say someone is experiencing a tragic event or they just experienced a tragic
Mhm.
event. So this event may require grieving, processing their feelings, and so forth, not including any other arrangements they may need to coordinate, within their world, so to speak,
Yeah.
depending on the event. Um, is it best for clients to see you immediately for this, or would you recommend that there's a process, an emotional process, or something they go through prior to seeing you, or how what's most recommended, or does it vary based on the individual and the event?
Yeah. Yeah, well, I mean, the long and the short of it is it absolutely varies. And I
Okay.
will say say that we do frequently get clients who have recently lost a loved one.
Yeah.
Sometimes we recently had a client come in who the loss had happened within a week, and
Mm,
they were pretty raw about it
right.
and crying and vulnerable, and that's okay, right? You know,
Yeah. Yeah.
we really want to support people in holding space for whatever is coming up for themselves, right?
Right.
And you know, just to share, like that client had that very emotionally raw experience after the meditation, and then went into the tank for an hour and came out feeling completely different in
Mm,
relationship to their own grief, right? Because
right.
when you're laying in a pool of salt water, and we're not
Yes.
talking like your bath at home, we're talking 1,500 pounds of Epsom salts in
Oh
the tank.
my.
So it alleviates
Wow.
90% of the effect of gravity, and you're floating there. Your whole muscular structure has no choice but to relax and
Wow.
surrender and open up
Yeah.
everything within you, because you know you literally cannot sink.
Hmm.
People often
Hmm.
ask that question, so I'll share that. But you know, then you're laying there and you're focusing on the energetic center of your heart, and you're connecting within, and that is when we process emotions, when we process content that maybe we're not fully capable of processing in our everyday lives because of the bills, the kids, the, you
Right.
know, demands of daily living, or the
Right.
realities of closing out someone's estate. You know,
Hmm.
so we regularly get people all across the spectrum of grief. We, you know, sometimes people will come to us on. We actually had somebody come to honor the year anniversary of the death of a loved one. Um,
Ah, really?
yes,
Yeah.
yes. And so they wanted to come and do something special for themselves and allow themselves to just presence that on that day. It was
Yeah.
important for them. So that's absolutely to kind of get back to your question about duration. I think, you know, it's important to think about, you know, what we're doing really is we're empowering people with this awareness, the development of this awareness of when am I in a state of coherence and when am I not
Right.
in a state of coherence. And then we're
Right.
giving them a space to practice and to rest. But to answer your question more broadly about this notion of duration, you want to think about your day in
Mhm.
a ratio. Can I
Okay.
spend 60% of my day in a state of coherence as opposed to stress?
Right.
Is it like how so that's, you know, roughly phi ratio. So it's 60-40 split, right? And it's
Yeah.
like how am I moving through life in a way where 60% of my day I'm feeling aligned, harmonious, in
Hmm.
flow, connected
Hmm.
to self, resonating,
Yes.
moving through life in that way. And
Yes.
because life happens, right? So it's
Hmm.
okay if there's a percentage of your day that's not the case, right? We want to
Right.
be, but if people are spending 60% of their day in stress, fight or flight or freeze,
Hmm.
that's going to lead, that's what's called chronic stress. And that is, you know, study after study after study after study demonstrates that chronic stress is associated with decreased, you know, health outcomes across the board. So
Mm.
we want to encourage people to begin to recognize when they're in this, you know, state of coherence, what that
Yes.
feels like for them, and then
Yes.
encourage them to be shifting their self-concept in such a way where they can be more that way than less. Um,
Understood.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. No, understood. Thank you for sharing that. With the array of services and therapies that you provide at Quantum Clinic, Caitlin, um, how do you determine what method is needed for each client? I mean, is it based on their current situation? Uh, this may sound like another variation or flavor of my previous question, but just trying to understand, let's say someone who has insomnia,
Mhm.
would they receive or would you determine a different type of therapy for them
Treatment plan,
versus
yeah.
someone with anxiety or grievance or
Right. Those are
grieving?
great questions, and, you know, I'm happy to expand a little bit on that. You know,
Mhm.
because we really see this as a model of preventative care, we're not so much in the business of treating disease,
Right.
though results often look like symptom reduction, right? So
Yeah,
people
yeah.
people do often come to us because they're dealing with insomnia. Insomnia is one of the things that flotation therapy has kind of consistently been shown to help improve. Not
Yeah.
only does it help with the muscle relaxation and allowing all that to really fully relax, but then your mind sort of, it's sort of, if you really allow yourself to be there, you
Hmm.
sort of have to enter into a state of surrender. And most times people then go home and say, man, I had the best night's sleep of my life.
Wow.
So we have memberships for twice a month. People can come in twice a month. That, is
Hmm.
something that we see pretty regularly. We have
Yeah.
regular clients who come in maybe once a month. They see it as,
Hmm.
something that fits into their schedule on a monthly basis. I'm in
Right.
that category. I myself will do it once a month, just kind of as a preventative measure.
Hmm.
Something that I know, really supports whole health and functioning. And then we have people who are a little bit more, working through something kind of in what we would call an acute phase. Obviously, if somebody requires hospitalization or, an IOP program or something, we're not that.
Right.
Um,
Right.
but we do work with people who are in the process of recovery as well. So we want our clients and people in the Los Angeles greater area to really understand. Look who's joined us over here.
Oh,
Um,
look at that. Okay, I see. So such a cutie.
yeah.
Oh, such
But
a cutie.
anyway, to just summarize what I was trying to say is we really want people
Uh-huh.
to understand that we're a companion on the journey. We're here to support. And the frequency of visits really kind of depends on what you've got going on, and how supportive you find it.
I see. I gotcha. Caitlin, I'm going to be honest with you. I had another question here I was going to ask you when I was writing these up the other day, and I looked at it, I read it, and I just decided I scribbled, crossed it out. Okay, but at a high level, and I think you've answered it pretty much in distinguishing. It's not disease treatment. Of what you're pursuing or what you're in the business of, right? But a lot of times the results out of the therapy can appear as if it's treatment of that or a resolution of that.
Mhm.
My question I wrote and ended up scribbling at a high level was, um, were there any clients that were on medication that have gone through your therapy and in result they no longer need the medication? You
Well,
know.
that's a great question. We work with clients across the board who so people who are using
Hmm.
antidepressants and anxiolytic
Hmm.
medications, and people who mood stabilizers. That's really common. Um,
Mm.
we're definitely not in the business of advising people as to whether or not they should be on or off their medication. They have to have that conversation with their physician or their prescribing psychiatrist.
Right.
But, a lot of the benefits of this work, right, which involves developing a more awareness around one's mind-body connection, developing what's called interoception, or an awareness of internal experience and
Hmm.
sensations, images, feelings, thoughts. It does have the benefit of mood regulation, emotional processing, reduced stress, reduced inflammation, pain management. So it
Right.
has a lot of those same benefits. And if people are on the journey of questioning or saying, you know what, I've been on this antidepressant for a few months or years, and I really would like to get off of it. Obviously we're here to support that conversation, but not, we can't make determinations for you for what's best in your life.
Right.
Only you can do that.
Right, and so I guess that would have to be like a disclaimer, maybe? Um, I don't know how often it comes up when you're with your clients, you know?
Yeah, not often. Like again,
Okay.
um, we were started because we see I mean, there is a massive, massive epidemic of opioid use, and the clinical studies on these pharmacological solutions to mood disorders, to anxiety
Right.
disorders, and even, PTSD,
Yeah.
they're mixed, right? And so there's
Mhm.
a big movement happening to explore other things like psychotropic medications, right? Like psilocybin or LSD or, whatever.
Yeah.
People are exploring that right now, and
Sure.
so we're saying, the quantum clinic model of this, mind-body connection, empowering people with the skills and experience of accessing a state of coherence and deep, deep rest to support resetting your autonomic nervous system and allowing for the different energetic centers in the body to begin to work in harmony with one another. We're proposing that actually is potentially an even deeper way of interacting with whole humans, because we've all,
Right.
like I said in the beginning, we're all healing through something. So,
Mm-hmm.
whatever that is, we want people to know that we're here to support you. We're here to be a companion on the journey, as we walk through, as we boldly go nowhere on this planet called Earth.
No, 100%. I love it. I love it. And again, thank you for that clarification. Um, as you empower your clients in this coherent way of thinking and being, and having them understand the state of coherence and the benefits when it comes to things like decision making, when
Yep.
it comes to things like just how you interact with family, friends, and personal and professional environments, right? You have clients that come in, say, bi-weekly for sessions, monthly for sessions. And, when they leave, they go home and it's almost like a back to life type thing when they go home. I would imagine that, that you give your clients tools for using outside of therapy, right?
Absolutely.
And can you give us an example of a tool? Well, it's a two-part question. Uh, what ways can can they practice in order to sustain their serenity and mindset without reverting back to old or complacent behaviors? Is there anything that they can do? Well, what's an example of one of your tools that you would provide for them for sustaining?
Mhm.
And is there anything that you recommend outside of what you provide them as a means to help sustain that serenity?
Yeah. Well, you know what? I'm going to be kind of blunt and take off the gotta say it exactly right kind of
Sure, absolutely. No, however you want.
Am I allowed to swear on this program?
Well, sure. Yeah, sure. Because look, however you articulate it, the beauty of podcasting is people have the rewind or push back 15 seconds button as far back as they want to hear it again, and
Yeah,
then eventually it'll sink in. So
there
go
you
right
go.
ahead. Yeah,
Well, you just gotta do it.
there you go. Love it.
You just gotta do it, I
Yep.
mean,
Yep.
if you have ingrained, patterns of behavior and relating and things that
Hmm.
are a part of who you are, well, you have to connect to the potential
Yep.
of the new you that you're
Yep.
trying to become, and that has to
Yes.
become stronger than the habitual pattern that you reenact. And you have to be that. You have to do that in the world. No one can do it but you. So,
Yes.
we'll provide you with the techniques, we'll show you the data, you can buy a Bluetooth biofeedback sensor, you can come and float all you want.
Yeah.
But until you do it in
That's
your
right.
life ain't gonna change.
No, makes sense. Makes sense. And you know what? That's a pretty straightforward recommendation.
I hope
So,
so.
yeah, sometimes you just have to lay it out there, and yeah, and it's like, okay, people start thinking, I'm okay, maybe I'm over complicating this. It's not that complicated. Just do it, right?
Right. That's exactly right, just do it.
Well,
Like a Nike.
fantastic. Yeah, like a Nike commercial. You heard it here, everyone. Dr. Katelyn Lehman of Quantum Clinic says, just do it. You come to sessions, you have the water flotation sessions, you have the meditation, and you want to sustain it and maintain your sense of serenity outside of therapy, just do it.
If only it was
Fantastic.
that simple, Aubrey.
Yeah, well, right. I know for sure, right? Yeah, if it were only that simple, I'm sure there's tons more questions your clients would have as far as how to keep that going. But again, simply put, just do it.
Just do it.
It's yeah, it makes a lot of sense with yeah, just three simple words.
Mm.
All right. This is the part now. I mentioned it earlier when we started our conversation, Caitlin, of I wanted to kind of unpack a little bit more about the connectedness between the heart and the brain.
Mhm.
Okay. And the reason why I wanted to maybe expound on that a little bit for the benefit of the listeners is because I think people get caught up in one or the other, and and I guess um, fail to recognize both simultaneously
Yeah.
and how they're connected, at least in the throes of, say, an extreme circumstance they may
Oh,
be
yeah.
going through at that time, right?
Yeah.
There was an article in your blog that I found completely fascinating. And I guess because it was part of what I struggled with from time to time, it talks about the repetitive daily grind of the demands of living, the habits we form to meet those demands, and just breaking free of that pattern to realize our true potential, right?
Mhm.
So, if someone is going through emotional distress and they're faced to make a decision or something, must they first separate from their emotions to help become attuned to their inner guidance, or is this part of the heart brain coherence or connectedness that you referred to earlier?
Mhm. Mhm. That's a really powerful and important question that you're asking. Let me see how I can best respond to that. Couple things come to mind, which is that the age old adage, you got to feel it to heal it, right?
Mm, yes.
You can't divorce yourself from your emotional experience and expect to create a new way of being, right?
Right,
Um,
right.
I think, it's important to differentiate between what's a normative response to adversity,
Hmm.
right? And
Hmm.
what is a a um a symptom or a distressing response that is persistent, um, and affects you in multiple areas of your life, right? Like if your
Right, right,
anxiety is so overwhelming that social situations become difficult for you, or if your depression causes you to like, not be able to get out of bed, like that's a completely different paradigm than
right.
just kind of normative, and again, this is also very different across cultures, but normative
Hmm.
responses to life experience, right? Like we all have those, and
Yep, yep.
they so so I want to just, for the listeners out there, to say, like, if you're really really struggling, get the support you need. Go find a therapist. You can talk to someone about it, and they'll give
Right,
you a variety of tools and techniques, to support you in addressing it, either from a cognitive perspective, an emotional one, or behavioral one, right? There's lots of
right,
different ways. All roads lead to Rome. So we're there's no point of entry that doesn't also get to the core of the issue eventually, right? We're just proposing that this is one. And
right,
most of the clients that we work with fall in that kind of middle of the road range where they, like, yeah, they
mhm.
get really stressed when things are difficult at work. Yeah, they have sometimes difficulty falling asleep because they're thinking too much about what's going on in their life. All of those
Right,
kind of fall into what I would call normative responses to the lives we lead in this
right.
world today, which is, you know, very polarized, and
Mhm.
the
Excuse me.
so ultimately, though,
Mhm.
what most, healers or psychotherapists or, mental health practitioners or psychologists will say is that you have to go there, right, in order
Yeah.
to really heal it. Um, and once you become, that happens for people at different stages of readiness in their
Oh,
journey.
sure. Yeah.
And so we want to just, at Quantum Clinic, we're here to support it wherever you are in that journey. Right.
Yes.
And, if we, in working with clients, realize that, our services maybe are not as robust as they may need because they are really, really, really in the throes of a difficult emotional reality that doesn't seem to be getting better, then
Yeah.
we would want to help them find the right kind of treatment for them. But a lot of people, just normal daily life stress, the stress of living in the modern world,
Right.
benefit from having an opportunity to really connect within, just holding themselves, connecting with the heart, and and in rest.
Gotcha. Love it. Love it.
I
And
hope that answered your question. I think I sort of went around and around.
no, it certainly did. It certainly did. You were very articulate in how you determine, when you are examining the current state of a client, when you need to say, maybe suggest or recommend
Refer out, we would call
or
it.
refer out. Yeah. Versus, those that are, in that sweet spot or wheelhouse of benefiting from your services.
Yeah.
So no,
Well,
thank you
most
for.
people, yeah, I mean, just to kind of demystify it, most people know what they need to do,
Yeah.
right? Most
Yeah.
people, if they're in the addiction and they keep going back to the drug, right? Like they
Yeah.
know they need to stop, right? So,
Right.
or
Right.
and it's about finding community. It's about avoiding people, places, and things that trigger you.
Yep.
All of those
That's
things.
right.
A lot of folks know that stuff, right?
Yeah.
So but what then do I do, right, with
Right.
myself? Well, you have to
Right.
create those new patterns, and so this is one thing that you can do, that if it's supportive, by all means, come,
Yes.
and
Yes.
we will support you, and we will be here for you, to walk beside you and with you, forward as you get clarity on what that future self is all about, right? Because
Right. Right.
if you no longer want to be like that, well, then you have to first of all, you have to know that you don't want to be like that anymore. Then you have to
Right.
figure out where you're going.
Yeah.
You have
Yeah.
to create that mental imagery and align it with your heart's desire and your emotional state. You have to bring that in by
Hmm.
being that person. And that person 9 times out of 10 is going to want to be, more loving, more compassionate, less angry, less
Yeah.
stressed, right? Like
Yeah. Yeah.
that's pretty much just the nature of attraction and aversion. We want to be more loving. We want to be less spiteful. We want
Right.
to be more accepting of ourselves. We want to be less critical.
Yes.
So you have to connect with that vision of yourself and become it through your life's work, through this practice of creating coherence or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that makes all kinds of sense, Caitlin. Thank you for sharing that. And yeah, it's straightforward. People do know what type of help they're looking for. They know what their problems are and what they're trying to get out of. And it's not as easy for some versus others. Like you said, going back to the drug, and you want to go away from the drug. And how do I teach me how to practice discipline, right? Teach me how to resist those temptations and that sort of thing. So yeah, having a clear map for that, and having the support in navigating through that map towards transformity
Mhm.
is huge. And I want to thank you for sharing that once again. So Caitlin, if you could sum up in a sentence, and I have a feeling I know what this answer is going to be, or at least what part of the sentence will be. If you could sum up in a sentence, in one sentence, what does freedom look like for those who come to Quantum Clinic?
Wow. Wow. I just need to sit with that for a minute.
Sure. I'm a big fan of pause for effect, by the way.
Yeah, good. Well, or pause to really reflect.
Reflect too, for effect and reflect.
There you go. But, Oh, the word actually that keeps coming to mind for me is actually liberation, which
Mm,
feels like a verb
yes.
word, and
Yes.
freedom feels more like a result word. So
Mm,
to be engaged in the practice of liberatory practice, right?
yeah.
Freeing ourselves from the confines of, our past experience, our
Yeah.
traumas, our, whatever the story is, right?
Yeah.
Being in embodying a liberatory ethos in your
Yes.
life. We
Yes.
hope more people can be that for themselves, no matter what the story, no matter what the experience is. And if that leads to freedom, um, or then we are so grateful.
Fantastic. Well said. Well said. I love it. I absolutely love it. So Caitlin, how can the listeners learn more about your great work and learn more about Quantum Clinic?
Absolutely. So we have a website,
Hmm.
www.quantumclinic.com.
Okay.
Um, you can definitely check it out. And we're also on socials at Quantum Clinic USA on
Wonderful.
Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube. So find us wherever you find your media these days.
Fantastic. We will definitely make sure we put all of that information in the episode show notes, the web address, the social media handles, how you can be reached or followed. The listeners will be able to click on these links to connect with you while listening to this wonderful conversation. Dr. Katelyn Lehman, I can't thank you enough for coming on to the show, sharing your great insights, as well as the awesome services that Quantum Clinic provides. Um, I hope we can stay connected and maybe bring you back on the show sometime down the line. I'm truly grateful for you coming on the show.
I love it. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, absolutely. And I want to thank all of you for tuning in and listening. And hey, look, as always, we want all our listeners to know that when dealing with life struggles, you're never alone and there's always hope. Please share this show with someone you know who needs inspiration and motivation. We're all in this journey of life together, and it sure feels good having you on the road with me. Thanks again for listening. We'll chat again soon. We really hope you enjoyed this episode of the Roads Rediscovery. We'd love to hear from you. Shoot us an email at roadsrediscoverypodcast@gmail.com and leave us any questions or comments you may have.